Claude Fable Mythos is the first model you probably won't use. You probably won't use Claude Fable, not because it isn't good. It might be the best model Anthropic has ever shipped. You won't use it because after June 22nd of 2026, it disappears from your subscription, and using it after that means paying something much closer to what it actually costs. Anthropic just released their most powerful public model, gave everyone 2 weeks to fall in love with it, and then scheduled its removal. Why would a company ship its best product and then take it away? And what does that tell us about where every AI subscription is heading? That's the topic on today's Tech Thaumaturge. If you're watching this, you're probably an engineer or at least someone who codes regularly, and you're probably on the Claude Pro or Max plan. $20 a month or $200, maybe $100. You've been living in a golden age and you probably haven't noticed. On June 9th, Anthropic released Claude Fable 5, a public version of their Mythos class model. The benchmarks are great. That's not the interesting part though. The interesting part is one paragraph in the announcement, and I think it's a preview of the business model for all frontier AI going forward. Here's what the announcement actually says. I'll put the link in the description so you can read it yourself. From today through June 22nd, Fable 5 is included on Pro, Max, Team, and seat-based enterprise plans at no extra cost. Then, on June 23rd, we'll remove Fable 5 from those plans. Using it after that will require usage credits. Usage credits are pay-as-you-go. They bill at the same rates as the API, $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens. That's exactly double Opus 4.8. Meanwhile, the full Mythos 5 model isn't purchasable at all. It's restricted to vetted partners like cybersecurity teams in Anthropic's Project Glasswing initiative. To be fair, Anthropic says they aim to restore Fable 5 as a standard part of subscriptions plans, once capacity allows. Maybe they will, but notice the mechanic because it's new. Let every subscriber taste the best model, build the habit, then move to a metered billing. 2 weeks of free examples, then the meter starts. So the question becomes, why structure it that way? To answer that, you need to understand what your subscription has actually been buying you. Your $100 or $200 a month plan buys you thousands of dollars in compute. Quick refresher on how this stuff is priced, and I'll keep it short because most of you live this every day. API customers pay per token in and out, with output tokens costing several times more than input. Subscription customers pay a flat monthly fee with rate limits. Those rate limits are the only thing standing between you and effectively unlimited usage. And the rate limits have been generous, wildly generous, to be honest. In May, a Hacker News user posted their usage stats from CC Usage, a tool that reads your Claude Code logs and prices the tokens at API rates. And their conclusion was, without the $100 max subscription, their month of usage would have been around $4,100 at API prices. That's a 40x gap. One developer published 8 months of data, roughly 10 billion tokens, over $15,000 of API equivalent usage, all for about $800 in subscription fees. This isn't a secret Anthropic is embarrassed about. It's in their own words. When they announced weekly rate limits back in July of 25, they said, quote, one user consumed tens of thousands in model usage on a $200 plan. The editor, Zed, when Anthropic changed how third-party tools bill, wrote the Claude subscriptions had previously subsidized agent usage at, quote, roughly 15 to 30 times compared to API pricing. Now, one honest caveat, API list price is not Anthropic's actual cost. The API has healthy margins. Analysts at SemiAnalysis estimate Anthropic's inference margins climbed into the mid-60s% over the past year. So a $4,000 user might actually cost Anthropic a few $100s to serve. But a few $100 against a few $1,000 subscription is still a loss. Multiplied across every power user every month, the information reported by Anthropic cut its 2025 gross margin projection to around 40%, 10 points below their earlier estimate, partly because the inference plan's cost ran about 23% over the plan. Sorry, a lot of math, a lot of weird jargon words, apologies. Flat rate pricing has a structural problem. Your best customers are your most expensive customers. Every other software business wants power users. Here, power users are a liability. If subscriptions lose money on exactly the users who love the product most, you have two options. Option one is to change the pricing. We have a beautiful case study of how that goes, which I did a video on. In June of 2025, Cursor changed a $20 Pro plan from a fixed 500 fast requests to roughly $20 of usage metered at API rates. Same product, same price, suddenly metered. Users found their month of capacity gone after a handful of prompts on the big models. Some got surprise overage bills. The backlash was loud enough that 3 weeks after, the CEO published an apology saying, "We recognize that we didn't handle this pricing rollout well and we're sorry," and offered refunds for the surprise charges. Cursor wasn't being greedy, by the way. Reporting that at the time suggested that they were paying more to Anthropic for inference than they collected in revenue. Agentic coding burns tokens in a way per request pricing never anticipated. They had to reprice, and they still took a hit on the reputational side, and Cursor alternatives became a trending search. That's the lesson every AI company absorbed. Never visibly take away something users already have, which brings us to option 2. The new stuff is born metered. Option 2 is quieter. You never reprice the existing plan. You just make sure that the next great thing is never fully on it. Your $200 max plan still exists. Opus 4.8 is still on there. Nothing was taken away, but Fable 5, the model everyone will benchmark against, lives in usage credits after June 22nd. The subsidy doesn't end, it just stops applying to the frontier. And if you zoom out over the past year, Anthropic has been walking this direction in small steps the whole time. Weekly rate limits in August, blocking third-party tools from authenticating with subscriptions in the winter, and then effective June 15th, all agents and third-party usage moved off of your subscription limits entirely onto credits billed at the full API rates. Fable is just the first time a flagship model got itself the same treatment. Why now? Anthropic confidently filed for an IPO on June 1st. Reports put the target around October, led by banks including Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan, at a valuation that bankers reportedly justify assuming margins expand. You cannot walk into a public markets with a subscription business where your most engaged users each destroy thousands of dollars of value a month. Subsidies are a growth tactic for private companies. Public companies get asked about gross margin every 90 days. So who does use Fable and Mythos after June 22nd? Companies. Specifically, companies that can write a business case. A heavily used frontier model runs serious money per engineer. Microsoft reportedly started pulling engineers off of Claude Code this spring when internal billing hit around $2,000 per engineer per month, and heavy users can land well beyond that. For you personally, $2,000 a month may be absurd, but a company, the math is different. If $2,000 tool makes a $20,000 a month engineer 15% more productive, the CFO is going to approve it. That's the tiering that's emerging, and I think it's the actual headline of the Fable launch. Subscriptions keep last generation's excellent models at flat rates for individuals. The frontier becomes a metered enterprise-priced product. Both things stay true at once. You keep your great deal, and the best model quietly stops being for you. Now, in full transparency, this is partly a theory. Anthropic says the removal is about capacity, and they plan to restore it. But watch what happens with the next model and the one after that. If each new flagship launches with a taste window and then moves to credits, the pattern isn't capacity, it's now the business model. So what do you actually do with this information starting today? First, measure your own subsidy. Install CC usage and run it against your Claude Code history. Know whether you're a $30 user paying $200 or a $4,000 user paying $100. The number tells you how exposed you are to whatever comes next. 2. Use the trial window deliberately. You have until June 22nd. Run Fable on your hardest real problems, not toy prompts, and compare it honestly against Opus 4.8. Decide if the delta matters for your work before someone else asks you to pay for it. 3. Don't architect workflows around a model you can lose. If your daily setup only works with the frontier model, you've built on rented ground. Keep your prompts, agents, and pipelines portable across model tiers. 4. If the frontier model genuinely earns its cost, build the business case now. Take your measured usage, price it at API rates, and put a productive number next to it. Companies will pay the $2,000 a month per engineer, but they need to justify the math. Be the engineer who shows up with the math. 3 things to take away here. First, your subscription has been heavily subsidized by Anthropic's own admission, and subsidies are a customer acquisition strategy, not a permanent state. Second, Cursor proved that visibly repricing an existing plan is how you burn your community. The smarter move is one we just watched happen, is leaving your plan alone and putting a future behind a meter. Third, none of this means that models get worse for you. It means that the ceiling is moving somewhere that your wallet probably won't follow. And knowing that early on is an advantage. So where do you all land on this? Are you going to buy usage credits for Fable after June 22nd, or is Opus enough? And if your company is paying for Frontier access, I want to hear what an approval conversation looks like. Drop it in the comments below.